Yet half of the credit for this belongs to your Qingyun Sect. Liu Wenchen's face turned ashen, and he snapped in a deep voice, "Cut the nonsense, open it at once." At this moment, Tie Bubai had already torn apart the final seal. While staying on guard against them snatching it away, he slowly pried open the jade casket. He said in a sardonic, mocking tone, spending 100 spirit stones just to take a single glance at the Jade Talisman, "This elder truly admires your Qingyun Sect greatly. In consideration of your such generosity, I shall allow you to properly gaze upon the true appearance of the Jade Talisman." He laughed loudly, flipped open the jade casket, and swept his gaze across its contents. The very next instant, the smile on his face froze solid. His eyes were locked firmly onto the jade casket, his entire body seeming to have turned to stone in place. Seeing the jade casket open, all present immediately craned their necks, eager to catch a glimpse of this incredibly powerful jade talisman. Tai Bubai, by contrast, was a mess of frayed nerves, his mind completely blank. The jade casket was empty. How could that be possible? When he had completed the transaction at the auction house, he had opened the jade casket personally, confirmed its contents repeatedly to be correct, closed it with his own hands, and even affixed the seal onto it himself. Throughout that entire process, he had been the only person present, and no one else had touched the casket. Furthermore, ever since he obtained the jade casket, he had clutched it tightly in his hand the entire time, leaving no possibility of it being swapped. Yet why was the jade casket empty? He even suspected he had seen wrong, staring intently at it again and again, but it still remained empty. It felt as if he had stepped off the edge of a bottomless abyss, a violent sense of weightlessness and overwhelming dread of impending catastrophe surging up from the depths of his heart. He had lost the Jade Talisman he had purchased for 2 million spirit stones. How was he supposed to explain this to the sect master? The sect master would almost certainly never believe that the Jade Talisman had vanished so mysteriously. What awaited him would undoubtedly be brutal interrogation and punishment at the hands of the sect master. At this thought, his face turned pale with terror. "Elder Tai, why are you not showing it to us?" Liu Wenchen asked, craning his neck forward. Tai Bubai jolted awake from his daze as if from a dream. What he should be worrying about now was not what would happen after he returned to the sect, but the present situation. He remembered how arrogant, domineering, and smug he had been when extorting Liu Wenchen just moments ago. If they saw through his predicament, he dared not imagine what would happen next. He hurriedly snapped the jade casket shut and put on an act of reaffixing the seal onto it. He forced himself to remain calm and said, "Sect Master Liu, and all elders of Qingyun Sect, I have just pondered over your words carefully, and I believe you are entirely correct. To recklessly damage the relationship between our two sects, relying solely on a jade talisman, will only bring retribution in the end. Therefore, you may treat all my earlier words as if they were never spoken. As long as your Qingyun Sect does not provoke our giant sect, this jade talisman will never be used against you." Each and every elder in attendance was utterly thunderstruck. Tai Bubai had already all but secured that million spirit stones, as if he had the sum in his mouth and was about to swallow it whole, only to spit it back out, putting on a facade of sudden, righteous enlightenment. Shock and astonishment aside, this was without a doubt an unimaginable boon for the Qingyun Sect. After a brief moment of stunned disbelief, Liu Wenchen's face immediately lit up with elation. He rose to his feet and cupped his hands in salute, saying, "This sect master is greatly gratified that Elder Tai is willing to consider the long-standing relationship between our two sects. I shall treat what just transpired as if it never happened. We shall regard Elder Tai as nothing more than a guest visiting our Qingyun Sect. Someone come serve Elder Tai tea." The rest of the elders also hurriedly put on pleasant, amicable expressions, though they still harbored deep resentment over Tai Bubai's repulsive conduct moments earlier. Yet the man carried a jade talisman on his person, which still loomed as a great threat over the entire Qingyun Sect. Under these circumstances, it was best to forge an amicable relationship with him if, at all possible. At the very least, they could not afford to offend him. If he grew displeased, what was stopping him from demanding another million spirit stones? Fang Chen almost burst out laughing. It was true. Very few people who attained the position of Grand Elder were simple, ordinary figures. Even with his jade talisman missing, he had managed to remain completely calm, putting on a dignified, high-sounding front to deal with the Qingyun Sect so seamlessly that not a single flaw showed. If Fang Chen had not been the one who stole the jade talisman, even he would have nearly been fooled by the man's impeccable performance. Recalling the man's repulsive attitude earlier, Fang Chen had no intention of letting him get away with this farce. Master, this old fool was outrageously arrogant towards us just a moment ago. What right does he have to be treated as a guest of the Qingyun Sect? As soon as these words left his mouth, Liu Wenchen's countenance shifted slightly. Hold your tongue, such insolence. They had just barely gotten Tai Bubai to have a change of heart. If Fang Chen's outburst enraged him, what would they do then? Sure enough, no sooner had the words been spoken. Tai Bubai let out a heavy, disdainful snort through his nostrils. Impudent brat, this elder showed you mercy, yet you refuse to know what is good for you. Truly, kind people are bullied, just as docile horses are ridden by all. Apologize to this elder at once, or I shall not let the matter of that 1,000,000 spirit stones drop so easily. This threat sent a jolt of panic through the sect master and all the elders present. They all turned to glare at Fang Chen, their eyes filled with resentment and reproach. Good for nothing but ruining things, did Fang Chen think the Qingyun Sect had so many spirit stones they could afford to throw them away? The tiny spark of admiration Liu Wenchen had held for Fang Chen's backbone was instantly snuffed out. Fang Chen, how dare you behave so rudely? Apologize to Elder Tai at once. Fang Chen could not help but admire Tai Bubai's composure. Even at this critical juncture, he dared to put on such a bold front. Were the Jade Talisman not already tucked away in Fang Chen's own pouch, even he would have been deceived by Tai Bubai's bluff. Master, are you not the slightest bit curious? Fang Chen could not openly state that the jade casket was empty, for that would immediately cast suspicion upon himself. If that came to pass, the Jade Talisman would certainly be seized by the sect, so he could only drop subtle, roundabout hints to warn others. Is that old cur even capable of benevolent intentions? Only a moment before he opened the jade casket, he was still sneering and speaking in that snide, sarcastic tone. Why would he completely flip his demeanor the second the jade casket was opened, putting on a pretense of acting for the greater good of both sides? Moments prior, all present had been immersed in the joy of the dark clouds overhead suddenly dispersing, so much so that they were nearly ready to feel deep gratitude toward Tai Bubai. None of them had the presence of mind to consider such odd inconsistencies. Now that Fang Chen had pointed these facts out, they began to detect faint traces of foul play. Indeed, judging by Tai Bubai's past conduct, he was the very embodiment of arrogance, treachery, and baseness. How could a man like him suddenly have an unexpected change of heart? Furthermore, as Fang Chen had noted, he did not back down at any earlier point, only making a complete 180-degree shift in his attitude the very moment the jade casket was open. It would be utterly preposterous to claim there was nothing wrong with the contents of that jade casket. Liu Wenchen narrowed his eyes, fixing his gaze intently upon the jade casket. He asked in a probing tone, Elder Tai, would you permit us to take a look at this jade talisman? Tai Bubai began to panic. He gnashed his teeth in unbridled fury, wishing he could tear this meddlesome Fang Chen limb from limb. He was the one who had kicked up a fuss, demanding to inspect the jade talisman earlier, and now he was the one who had roused everyone to the truth. On the surface, Tai Bubai forced himself to appear calm and unruffled. He let out a cold, indifferent snort. Sect leader Liu, you stand as the head of a renowned sect, yet you are so muddle-headed as to believe the nonsense spouted by a mere junior disciple. If you wish to see the jade talisman, you had best prepare yourself to hand over 1,000,000 spirit crystals first. These words once again gave Liu Wenchen and the various elders pause. Several elders immediately shot Liu Wenchen meaningful looks, urging him to stop while he was ahead, as there was no need to risk the consequences of inspecting the jade casket. If they did not inspect it, the Azure Cloud sect would suffer no losses whatsoever. If they did inspect it, and the jade talisman really was inside, the losses for the Azure Cloud sect would be catastrophic. Fang Chen, however, spoke up again to warn, Master, look, that old cur is already resorting to empty bluster. Your disciple strongly suspects that there is nothing at all inside the jade casket. Liu Wenchen's eyes narrowed to thin slits. Fang Chen's reasoning was sound. If Tai Bubai truly possessed the jade talisman, he could simply take it out to all present, then demand the payment he was owed. There would be no need for him to waste so much breath arguing. He rose slowly to his feet and spoke again in a probing tone. Elder Tai, take out the jade talisman and let us see it. If it is truly there, what is 1,000,000 spirit crystals to me? I will hand them over gladly. This move completely cornered Tai Bubai, leaving him with no way out. He glowered furiously at Fang Chen, his eyes blazing with hatred. He pretended to fly into a rage, flicking his sleeves as he stood up and snapped, You bunch of ungrateful wretches, Wait until I return to my sect and report this to our sect leader, then you will regret your insolence." With that, he placed his hands behind his back and made to depart. Witnessing this scene, the vast majority of the elders finally realized the full truth. Everything was exactly as Fang Chen had said. The jade casket was empty. Liu Wenchen also saw through the ruse, and a surge of unbridled rage shot straight up to his heavenly spirit crown. Tai Bubai had actually come swaggering to the Azure Cloud sect with an empty jade case to brazenly extort them. Recalling his earlier arrogance, overweening condescension, snide taunts, and exorbitant price gouging, Liu Wenchen was consumed with fury. He slammed his palm on the table and soared into the air, roaring, "Halt, where do you think you are going?" He moved like a great predatory bird, immediately blocking Tai Bubai's path. He struck Tai Bubai square in the chest with a single palm. Tai Bubai's face drained of color in terror, and he hastily raised his palm to fend off the blow. But how could he ever be a match for Liu Wenchen, the sect master of Azure Cloud sect? He was sent stumbling back violently on the spot by the single palm strike. Liu Wenchen took advantage of the opening to snatch the jade case in one motion, tore off its seal, and opened it to find it truly completely empty. This set the hearts of him and all the assembled elders completely at ease. Though they had no idea why the Jade Talisman that the giant sect had clearly won at auction was gone, leaving only an empty jade case. Tai Bubai had indeed just tried to extort 1,000,000 spirit stones from them using that empty jade case. At this realization, everyone present felt the weight of deep humiliation. This man had treated all members of the Azure Cloud sect as if they were 3-year-old children. If not for Fang Chen's timely reminder to demand to inspect the jade case, they would have been completely fooled by his ruse. Even more infuriating was that even after the fact that the jade case was empty had been exposed, he still acted as if nothing was amiss and continued to threaten the Azure Cloud sect. Had Fang Chen not spoken up a second time, the Azure Cloud sect would have fallen for his lies of having a sudden change of heart, and even sent him off politely as an honored guest. All of these incidents left them feeling as revolted as if they had swallowed a fly. When Hongyao had the most fiery temper of them all, she slammed her palm on the table and snarled, "You cur! You actually dared to treat all the elders of the Azure Cloud sect as fools to be toyed with. Sect Master, do not let him get away." The rest of the elders erupted in blazing rage, one after another. Tai Bubai spoke in a flustered panic. "Sect Master Liu, respected elders, this is all a misunderstanding. Please, do not damage the harmonious relations between our two sects." Fang Chen let out a cold snort. "When you held that jade case and lorded over us to blackmail us, I saw no sign that you cared about any harmonious relations between our two sects. Master, if word gets out that the Azure Cloud sect was humiliated like this, yet let him leave completely unharmed, want every random stray cat and dog dare to come test us in the future." He had not wanted to add fuel to the fire, as that would make the enmity irreconcilable. However, Tai Bu, I already bore a grudge against him. If he did not take this opportunity to cripple him, he would face endless trouble in the future. Liu Wenchen, who already had no intention of sparing Tai Bubai, grew even more enraged at Fang Chen's words, and frigid glints flickered in his eyes. He stared daggers at Tai Bubai. "Those who cause trouble in my Azure Cloud sect shall pay the price they deserve." He struck without hesitation. Tai Bubai howled in terror again and again, but trapped alone in the main hole of the Azure Cloud sect, how could he possibly escape? With a series of sharp cracking sounds, his chest was grievously wounded by Liu Wenchen in mere moments, and several of his bones were shattered. Immediately afterward, both of his arms were snapped clean off. Only then did Liu Wenchen cease his assault. He snorted coldly, "I've severed both your arms to teach you a lesson, and to let the entire world know what fate awaits those who dare act recklessly in my Azure Cloud sect." The rest of the elders also nodded in silent agreement. After all, the man was the grand elder of the giant sect. Severing both arms was more than enough of a warning. Tai Bubai, who had suffered a devastating loss, forced back the agonizing pain and apologized in a frosty tone. "I thank Sect Master Liu for sparing my life." As he spoke, the corner of his eye glared at Fang Chen with unbridled venom. Tai Bubai swore that he would skin Fang Chen alive the moment he got the chance, for this entire humiliation was entirely his doing. A chill ran down Fang Chen's spine. He had just been marked as prey by a venomous serpent. His eyes flickered with wit, and he spoke. "Master, is this punishment not far too lenient? If an elder of our sect brought an empty jade case to the giant sect to commit fraud, would Sect Master Kung let him off so easily?" Liu Wenchen and the other elders put themselves in that position, and their expressions turned grim. Qingyun was infamously petty and narrow-minded. When his own son lost to Fang Chen fair and square due to inferior skill, he had despicably triggered the beast tied in Beast King Mountain in retaliation. If an elder of the Azure Cloud sect dared to imitate Tai Bubai's fraud with Qingyun's temperament, he would have sliced the man to death on the spot. He would never be so merciful as to only sever both arms. Seeing that Liu Wenchen was swayed, Fang Chen continued, "Master, the beast tide is imminent, and the lands of the 9 sects will certainly descend into chaos. Everyone will be fighting for their own survival, and infighting and backstabbing will be unavoidable even among the 9 sects themselves. If the other sects believe the Azure Cloud sect is too kind and easy to bully, we will face endless trouble in the coming days. Why not seize this opportunity before the great chaos erupts, to strike with thunderous means to intimidate all other sects, so they know our Azure Cloud sect is not to be provoked?" Liu Wenchen exchanged glances with the group of elders, all falling into deep thought. Fang Chen's words were clearly perfectly logical. Under normal circumstances, releasing Tai Bubai would be no issue, even if they were secretly scorned for being too soft. But at this critical juncture, anyone who showed weakness would be seen as easy prey amid the beast tide. Not only could they not let Tai Bubai off lightly, they had to punish him severely to send a sharp, intimidating message to all onlookers. Seeing that his plan was working, Fang Chen added further persuasion. "Master Tai Bu, I openly committed such a vile act. No matter how we punish him, the giant sect will not dare to make a public outcry. They have no choice but to swallow their humiliation, blood and all." This struck directly at Liu Wenchen's core concerns. He had held back earlier out of fear of the giant sect's reaction, but these words cleared all doubts from his mind. With Tai Bu, by having committed such a disgraceful act, did the giant sect even have the face to stand up for him? Thinking of this, and recalling how Qingyun had triggered the beast tide earlier, he decided to settle both old and new scores today. Liu Wenchen's eyes turned icy. "Tai Bubai, my disciple is quite right. Letting you leave now would be far too merciful." Tai Bubai's face twisted with horror. "Sect Master Liu, calm down. Don't be fooled by your disciple. What are you doing, Liu Wenchen? You dare to sever my hand and foot tendons." For warriors who follow the path of physical cultivation, their physical form is their most vital treasure. Once their hand and foot tendons are crippled, they can no longer channel their strength, and their entire cultivation is forfeit. This is equal to a practitioner of standard cultivation method having their dantian destroyed. The several elders were also shaken to their core. The esteemed Grand Elder of the Giant Sect had been crippled without the slightest hesitation. Liu Wenchen's eyes remained frosty as he snorted, "Come, throw him out of the Azure Cloud sect." Several disciples stepped forward immediately and carried Tai Bubai out. Fang Chen was extremely frustrated. They had already severed his tendons. Why not just kill him outright? Instead, they left him alive to return to the giant sect, and now the man would target him for the rest of his life. Even if his physique was completely crippled, the connections and resources he had accumulated over the years still remained. He only needed to snap his fingers to send others to come after Fang Chen's life. "That will not do. I cannot let him return to the giant sect. Master, if there is nothing else requiring my presence here, I shall take my leave first," Fang Chen said with a calm expression. "Wait a moment." Liu Wenchen revealed a faint smile, patted his shoulder, and said, "You performed exceptionally well this time. As your master, I am thoroughly impressed." The rest of the elders also revealed looks of approval. When Hongyao spoke, "We owe this entirely to Fang Chen's reminder. Otherwise our sect would have lost both money and face." Zhao Wuji nodded in full agreement. "Sect Master, you must reward him handsomely this time." Liu Wenchen smiled. "That goes without saying." After a moment of thought, he reluctantly took out a jade pendant that shone with limpid light. "I share a personal friendship with the sect master of the 10,000 Swords sect. With this jade pendant, you may enter their sword forest to cultivate for one day. If you are fortunate enough, you may even break through a level in the Foundation Establishment realm." Sword forest break through a Foundation Establishment level. Fang Chen hastily took the pendant. "Thank you, master." Liu Wenchen nodded. "When you have the chance to go to the 10,000 Swords sect, do not forget to use it." There was nothing left for Fang Chen to attend to here, so he took his leave and hurried down the mountain to hunt down Tai Bubai. Now, returning to Tai Bubai, he had been brutally thrown outside the gates of the Azure Cloud sect. Fortunately, he had brought his second disciple, Sun Keazong, with him on this trip. Sun Keazong possessed an extremely powerful physique, with combat strength equivalent to a first-level Golden Core Realm cultivator. He had been waiting outside the Azure Cloud sect, and when he saw Tai Bubai being thrown out, his face turned pale with shock. "Master, what happened to your limbs? Your hand and foot tendons have..." been severed, he cried out in horror. His master had only gone into the Azure Cloud Sect for a short while, yet he had been tortured to the point of being unrecognizable. Even amid the unbearable agony, Tie Bubai retained his senses. He immediately cut Sun Keazong off and snarled in a low voice. Do you want the entire world to know I am crippled? Hurry up, escort me back to the Giant Sect at once.
He was the Grand Elder of the Giant Sect. After all, even a 3-year-old child knew he carried countless valuable treasures on his person.
If word got out that his cultivation was completely crippled, there was no guarantee that ill-intentioned individuals would not try to assassinate him in secret. Sun Keazong immediately shut his mouth, hired a horse, drawn carriage, helped Tie Bubai inside, and hurriedly departed from Azure Cloud City. As luck would have it, Fang Chen arrived just in time, witnessing the scene of Tai Bu by being helped onto the carriage. He remained expressionless, quietly trailing behind them. He resolved to wait until Tai Bubai and his group left the borders of the Azure Cloud Sect before making his move. Otherwise, if Tai Bubai died under suspicious circumstances within Azure Cloud Sect territory, it would give the Giant Sect a perfect pretext to launch a hostile attack. Thus, he tailed them the entire journey. Tai Bubai's cultivation was completely crippled, leaving him unable to sense impending danger, while Sun Keazong's cultivation was not powerful enough, his perception far from sharp.
The pair had no inkling whatsoever that Fang Chen had been following them this entire time.
3 days later, the travel-worn Sun Keazong finally departed the Azure Cloud Sect and stepped into the territory of the Giant Sect. Up ahead lay a border fortress town belonging to the Giant Sect, where several formidable experts of the sect were permanently stationed year-round. Once they entered the city, they would be completely out of danger. Tai Bubai lifted the carriage curtain, glanced back at the receding boundary line of the Azure Cloud Sect, and sneered. The Azure Cloud Sect is full of spineless fools with the benevolence of women. Since they already crippled me, why not just kill me? Do they think that after severing the tendons in my hands and feet, I will be grateful to them? I will devote my entire life to taking revenge on them, making them pay their blood debt with blood. His facial features twisted with rage, making him look exceptionally ferocious. Sun Keazong's face was dark with fury. Rest easy, master. Once I send you back to the sect, I will turn right back. Quietly kill a few Azure Cloud Sect disciples to get you a little initial compensation. I will break their arms, cripple their dantians, and make everyone in the Azure Cloud Sect rue their actions. A look of gratification crossed Tai Bubai's face, then he thought of Fang Chen, and his countenance turned even more vicious. Start with that disciple named Fang Chen. He is the one who put me in this wretched state. Dig up every last detail about him, where his family lives, how many people are in his clan, how many dogs they keep, how many chickens they rear, investigate everything down to the smallest detail. I will slaughter his entire clan, flay their skins, pick their bones, leave not even a single chicken or dog alive. I want Fang Chen to spend the rest of his life drowning in endless regret. He slammed his fist hard against the carriage wall. In the past, even a casual punch from him would have shattered the entire carriage to pieces. But now that the tendons in his hands and feet were severed, he could not muster even the slightest bit of strength. Thinking of this, his hatred for Fang Chen burned even more fiercely. But just at that moment, his ears twitched as he faintly caught the faint sound of something sharp scraping against the back of the carriage. Though the tendons in his hands and feet had been severed, his 5 senses remained sharp. In the blink of an eye, he decisively lunged forward and dropped flat to the carriage floor. A sharp whistling sound cut through the air at the same time as a black sword pierced through the carriage wall and stabbed inside, grazing past the back of his head. Under the force of the sharp sword Kai, a large patch of his scalp along with his hair was sliced off, oozing traces of blood. The searing pain made Tai Bubai roar in agony. Enemy attack, enemy attack. When one strike failed to land, Fang Chen kicked open the rear of the carriage, bent down and slipped inside. Heaven and earth starfall, he did not hesitate in the slightest, immediately unleashing his strongest sword technique. Accompanied by the terrifying roar of thunder, the black sword shattered the entire carriage, and amid the deafening thunderclap, stabbed straight for Tai Bubai's back. At the critical moment, Tai Bubai let out a thunderous shout, suddenly hunching over as dense cabbage-sized bulges of muscle rose all over his body. The moment the black sword pierced his skin, his muscles began writhing violently, clamping down hard on the blade. No matter how hard Fang Chen pushed, he could not drive it any deeper. Fang Chen was shaken in his heart. As expected of the great elder of the Giant Sect, even with his tendons severed and unable to launch an attack, his defensive power was still unparalleled. When his attack failed once more, he decisively pulled out his sword and retreated. With a thunderous crash, he had barely exited the carriage when a massive, overwhelming force bore down on him from above. He did not need to think to know that Sun Keazong had made his move. Heaven fighting 9 stances, Sky Splitter. Fang Chen did not hesitate at all, throwing a punch to meet the attack head-on. Boom, the immense force, like Mount Taishan crashing down, instantly sent Fang Chen plummeting downwards. Just as his feet were about to sink into the ground, turning him into a wooden stake to be slaughtered at will, he decisively activated his movement technique. Tapping the nearby carriage with the tip of his foot, he borrowed the momentum to fly backwards. Boom. He had barely flown away when a giant foot descended from the sky, stomping down on the spot where he would have landed. The ground was crushed into a 3-inch deep indentation. If he had been caught under that stomp, his bones would have definitely shattered, leaving him severely injured. When Sun Keazong failed to land 2 consecutive blows, he looked in surprise at the mysterious man in front of him, who wore a mask carved with the character 1. He took my punch head-on, and his arm didn't even break. Sun Keazong was stunned. That punch just now was his full-strength attack. Even a Golden Core Realm 5th-layer martial artist who had not specially tempered their physique would not necessarily be able to withstand it, yet this person was completely unharmed. In reality, Fang Chen was not completely unharmed. His left hand was throbbing with searing, burning pain. All 5 of his fingers felt like they were about to explode. If he had not cultivated the Iron Blood True Scripture, that attack just now would have directly crippled his arm. A fully mastered body cultivation technique is truly difficult to contend with. Tai Bubai had to die today. He had heard every single word the man had just said. He actually planned to persecute the people around him, even flay their skin and pick their bones. Thinking of this, a frigid, killing glint flashed across his eyes. Heaven and earth starfall, he thrust his sword forward, boundless sword kai, accompanied by a deafening dragon roar. Sun Keazong snorted coldly. As long as I am here, don't even dream of harming a single hair on my master's head. He slammed his fists forward, his immense power actually manifesting into tangible kai shaped like a fierce tiger, pouncing towards the powerful sword kai. At the same time, Sun Keazong glanced towards the fortress town behind him. With such a massive commotion here, the experts in the city would arrive in mere moments. All he needed to do was hold this man off, and they would be able to surround and kill him. Boom, the sword kai and fist force collided, erupting with a repelling force that sent both men flying backwards at the same time. The difference was that Sun Keazong staggered back several unsteady steps, while Fang Chen plunged his sword into the ground, borrowing the recoil force to spin half a circle while holding the hilt, before launching himself flying straight towards Sun Keazong. Heaven crippling finger, purple kai comes from the east. Sun Keazong had just steadied himself at this moment, when he was met with an incomparably fierce finger attack. His face changed slightly. Fang Chen's combat experience was so rich that it gave him quite a headache, making him realize he had run into an extremely difficult opponent. He immediately raised both arms, the muscles on his arms bulging one by one like pieces of solid armor. PFFT, however. Heaven Crippling Finger is a finger technique that can pierce even solid rock. How could mere flesh and blood stop it? A dull thud rang out, and a blood hole that almost went clean through was poked in his arm. Sun Keazong let out a scream of pain, hurriedly retreating to put distance between himself and Fang Chen. What he did not expect was that Fang Chen had no intention of prolonging the fight at all. Taking advantage of the moment the other man retreated, he activated his movement technique, nimbly circling around him and stabbing his sword straight towards Tai Bubai on the carriage. Tai Bubai was consumed by equal parts fury and terror. He shot to his feet, every muscle on his frame coiled tight like a solid ingot of forged iron, and sneered grimly, "You think you are capable of killing this old man?" The sword strike Fang Chen had unleashed moments prior had let him gauge the full extent of Fang Chen's strength. With the level of swordsmanship the other party possessed, he could not harm him in the slightest. He could shatter Fang Chen's sword techniques with nothing but his raw physical strength. Contrary to all expectations, the moment Fang Chen darted to the front of the carriage, he abruptly shifted the black sword to his left hand, his right hand closing around the hilt of the sword, slung across his back. The blade sang as it cleared its sheath. A blinding violet light abruptly burst forth across the world, carrying the icy, peerless edge of a heavenly blade, as it slashed down from above straight towards Tai Bubai. At the same time, Sun Keazong lived up to his reputation as a master of body refinement arts. Even with both his arms pierced through and his bones shattered, his battle prowess showed no sign of fading. "You dare harm my master, die," he roared, his fists surging forward like 2 ferocious tigers, slamming powerfully towards Fang Chen's back. As things stood, even if Fang Chen succeeded in killing Tai Bubai, he would have to take the full force of Sun Keazong's strike, which would undoubtedly shatter his heart into pieces. Yet Fang Chen showed not the slightest intention of dodging. Gripping the violet sword tightly, he roared in fury and brought the blade slashing down with all his might. It was only when the violet sword was nearly upon him that Tai Bubai realized how extraordinary this blade was. His face twisted with stark terror, and he screamed in panic, "Stop! Stop! What grievance do I have with you, sir?" The sword kai of the violet sword was unspeakably terrifying, capable of cleaving through all things even from a distance. Before the blade had even fully descended, Tai Bubai's supposedly invincible, iron-forged physique was split cleanly in two from the center like a block of soft tofu. Unwillingness lingered in his two eyes right up until the moment of his death. He could never believe that he, the grand great elder of the giant sect, would die such an ignominious death. Master Sun Kaozong witnessed this scene, his eyes nearly splitting from rage as he howled. His pair of unmatched fists slammed powerfully into Fang Chen's back. Boom! Fang Chen was sent flying instantly, but before he was hurled away, he forced his body to twist around, slashing fiercely with his sword at the foe behind him. His entire body then flew a full 5 to 6 zhang backwards, crashing heavily into a massive boulder. With a deafening crash, the boulder was pulverized on the spot. Fang Chen collapsed into the pile of stone dust, coughing violently, his mouth full of foamy blood. The upper part of his robes had been torn to shreds by the terrifying fist force, revealing a sapphire, blue body, protecting armor. This was precisely the top-grade armor he had purchased at the auction for an exorbitant sum, capable of withstanding a full strike from a Golden Core Realm 5th layer cultivator. He lay in the stone dust for a long while before he managed to catch his breath, climbing to his feet with great difficulty. "Luckily, I had this armor." Fang Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, saying with a note of relief. He dared not use such a life, for, life-fighting style again, he lifted his gaze to look at Sun Kaozong. The strike he had unleashed right before being sent flying should have inflicted no small amount of damage on the man. When he walked over to check, he only found a single severed arm belonging to Sun Kaozong. The man himself had already fled without a trace. When he focused his gaze into the distance, he spotted a fleeing figure darting rapidly towards the heavily guarded major town. Fang Chen considered the matter. If he gave chase now, he would likely be able to catch up to Sun Kaozong before he reached the town. However, the commotion from the battle just now was far too great. There was no guarantee that powerful experts from the town would not rush over to investigate. Furthermore, his only target had been Tai Bubai. Now that he was dead, he should retreat quickly to avoid unnecessary complications. He also did not forget to thoroughly loot Tai Bubai's corpse. To Fang Chen's frustration, because the body had been sliced clean into, the 5 crystal tokens, each with a value of 100,000 spirit stones on his person, had all been cut in half. Well, also, the Gale Pearl that the giant sect had won at the auction had been completely shattered. The violet sword's power being too great isn't entirely a good thing either. Fang Chen couldn't help but grumble. However, to Fang Chen's immense delight, there was a high-quality wooden box inside a bag, slung diagonally across Tai Bubai's waist. When he opened it, he found a stone that appeared to be burning, the Phoenix Bloodstone. It was actually the Phoenix Bloodstone. Fang Chen could scarcely believe his eyes. This was precisely the body refinement material required to cultivate the second layer of the Iron Blood Scripture, a material that had long gone extinct across the 9 sects domain, not seen for decades. To think Tai Bubai had one in his possession. The second layer of the Iron Blood Scripture was now within reach. If he could successfully cultivate to the second layer, the Phoenix Blood Physique, his physical strength would be so powerful that he would have nothing to fear from Sun Kaozong. He could even crush him outright. He treasured the stone as if it were a priceless treasure and stored it away carefully. After doing a final check to ensure he had missed nothing, he immediately activated his movement technique and fled the scene at top speed. Not long after, Sun Kaozong, clutching his severed arm, arrived at the scene with several body refinement experts with powerful auras. When they saw the manner of Tai Bubai's death, all of their eyes widened in shock. What kind of sword is this? It could actually slice Great Elder Tai clean into with a single strike. The cut is so smooth that even the severed bones have no jagged edges. This shows the sword is peerlessly sharp. Not even a top-grade magical artifact could achieve this. No matter what it is, we must find out who did this. Killing the great elder of the giant sect is a blood feud that can only end with the annihilation of one side. From today onwards, investigate every purple sword within the borders of the 9 sects domain. Until we find this person, my giant sect will never rest. When Fang Chen returned to the Azure Cloud sect, news of this incident had already been rushed to the sect via fast courier. Liu Wenchen even summoned the elders of all peaks for a meeting over this matter. All of them wore shocked expressions, while Liu Wenchen sighed and said, Luckily, he died within the borders of the giant sect. If he had died within the territory of our Azure Cloud sect, we would never be able to clear our names, no matter what we said. When Hongyao couldn't help but mutter, if we had known this would happen, we should have just executed him back then. That was far too close. Our Azure Cloud sect almost had to bear the charge of assassinating the great elder of the giant sect. Zhao Wuji and several other elders nodded in agreement one after another. Even Liu Wenchen felt a tinge of regret, saying, "We indeed did not think things through properly that day." If we had executed Tai Bubai publicly, the giant sect would have been in the wrong and wouldn't have dared to say a single word. But if Tai Bubai died under suspicious circumstances within the Azure Cloud sect, then we would be the ones in the wrong, and the giant sect would definitely come seeking retribution. His soft-heartedness had almost landed the Azure Cloud sect in unnecessary trouble. He then awkwardly changed the subject, but who exactly killed Tai Bubai? They struck right after he crossed the border. Clearly this person was looking out for the Azure Cloud sect and didn't want us to be dragged into trouble. But even if Tai Bubai had his tendons in his hands and feet cut, his physique had long reached the great completion stage. You can't kill him without the strength of at least Golden Core Realm's second layer. Do we have such a person in our Azure Cloud sect? Or was it one of you elders who took action? Everyone shook their heads one after another, for no reason at all. Why would we go and kill him? Liu Wenchen was puzzled. How strange. Is there still an unknown hidden expert in our Azure Cloud sect? He thought for a long while but could not find an answer, so he simply stopped dwelling on the matter. He said, "Tomorrow is the disciple rating assessment. Great Elder, your peak is hosting this event. Have you made all the necessary preparations?" In the aftermath of this recent turmoil, the Great Elder was widely criticized, and his authority suffered a severe blow. As such, he devised a plan to salvage his standing, undermine the prestige of the sect leader peak, to drag it down to the same low level as his own reincarnation peak. His method was simple. Use the upcoming disciple rating assessment to deliberately give the disciples of sect leader peak the lowest possible grade. That way, once sect leader peak's reputation is tarnished, reincarnation peak will no longer look like such a disappointment. Fang Chen spoke unhurriedly. "Rest easy, sect leader. This elder has already made all the necessary arrangements. It is you I am concerned about. Are you prepared? You best not have any unqualified disciples under your command, for if you do, they will be expelled from the sect, and you will be shamed as a result." Liu Wenchen immediately thought of Fang Chen, his face sinking as he snorted. "You need not concern yourself with that." Returning to the sect, Fang Chen headed straight for his private courtyard. He quickly shut the door, then eagerly released the little Qingyun, saying excitedly, "Where is the Jade Talisman?" "Hand it over quickly so I can see it. This great weapon, powerful enough to intimidate all 9 major sects, has fallen into my hands. I can barely contain my excitement." The little Qingyun stretched out its tiny short claw, rummaging under its fuzzy armpit before pulling out a palm-sized, fiery red Jade Talisman. It was deep crimson all over, glowing with a lustrous sheen. Even after eons of erosion by time, its luster had not faded in the slightest, a testament to the extraordinary nature of the material it was forged from. Its surface was carved with impossibly intricate runes. The moment Fang Chen glanced at them, his head began to spin, as if his very soul was about to be ripped apart by the patterns. He hurriedly shook his head and averted his gaze, and only then did his mind clear. As expected of a Jade Talisman, bearing a full strike from a nascent soul realm cultivator, one cannot even glance at it carelessly. Fang Chen marveled silently. He quickly fetched a brand new jade box, placing the talisman inside with the utmost care. This was the most powerful life-saving trump card he had ever obtained. Even if he encountered a sect leader, he would have nothing to fear. Next, he took out the Phoenix Bloodstone he had seized from Tai Bubai, his eyes shining with anticipation. "Whether I can successfully refine the Phoenix Blood precious physique depends entirely on you." He gathered a number of auxiliary materials, then prepared a large bucket of cold water. He first crushed the auxiliary materials, allowing their juices to fully dissolve into the water, before carefully placing the Phoenix Bloodstone into the bucket. The moment it touched the water, the Phoenix Bloodstone melted into clusters of blazing red liquid droplets, dyeing the entire bucket of water crimson and emanating waves of incomparably tyrannical energy. The little Qingyun twitched its nose, its eyes immediately lighting up as it hopped over to the bucket, lowering its head to take a huge gulp. The next instant, it suddenly clutched its neck and rolled on the ground in agony, its brown fur instantly turning bright red as if it was about to catch fire, crying out, "Master, I'm gonna die." "It burns so bad." Fang Chen chuckled. "Still think you can eat anything you want, you little glutton. This is Phoenix Bloodstone." Even brushing it against your skin hurts worse than being seared by a red, hot iron, and you dared to swallow it whole. The little Qilin rolled across the ground in agony, half dead from the pain, wailing, I won't do it again. Master, save me fast. Only then did Fang Chen pick it up. He injected spiritual power into its body, forcing out that mouthful of blood, red medicinal soup. When the soup hit the ground, it actually melted a hole as deep as a little finger into the blue brick floor. It was more terrifying than the deadliest poison. He tossed the little Qilin a rejuvenation pill, telling it to go to the side and recover from its injuries. He then stepped in front of the blood, red medicinal soup, gritted his teeth, stripped off his clothes, and jumped inside whole. In an instant, Fang Chen let out a shrill scream. He felt as if he had been thrown alive into a pool of magma. The inhuman pain was so unbearable that even he, who prided himself on his fortitude, could not help but howl repeatedly. His first instinct was to leap out of the bucket, but when he remembered how he had nearly been killed in his earlier fight against Sun Kaozong, he clenched his jaw and forced himself to stay submerged. Not only that, he even forced himself to circulate the iron blood scripture, drawing wisps of phoenix blood into his body to temper his internal organs, bones, and meridians. The agony of this process was beyond imagination. Fortunately, after enduring the extreme agony of the initial phase, his body adapted to the pain. His teeth ground together so hard they creaked, as he silently bore the immense suffering, absorbing the phoenix blood little by little. By dawn the next day, the liquid in the bucket was completely clear. Every last trace of the phoenix blood had been absorbed. Layers of dead skin had peeled off Fang Chen's body, revealing tender, fair new skin underneath. The infusion of phoenix blood had burned away all impurities from his body inside and out, granting him a veritable rebirth. Fang Chen slowly opened his eyes. He was rather startled to find himself covered in dead skin and hurried to bathe himself. After washing up, he discovered that all the old minor scars and even the moles on his body had vanished completely, replaced by a body so fair and smooth it would make even women green with envy. His already handsome features had taken on a softer, fairer cast, making him look like a sheltered, scholarly fool at first glance. No one would ever guess that he was a body refiner who had mastered body cultivation arts and attained the phoenix blood precious physique, a stark contrast to the burly, rough warriors of the giant sect. Fang Chen glanced at his reflection in the mirror and couldn't help but mutter in exasperation, "I'm way too pale. I look like some weak little scholar who'd keel over after a single punch." Dang, dang, dang. Just as he was about to further examine the changes to his body, the distant, resonant chime of a bell drifted over from the main square. Fang Chen's heart jolted. He had not forgotten what day it was, the disciple rating assessment. Only disciples who achieved a grade of good or higher would qualify to go to the border to resist the beast tide and exchange their battle contributions for generous resources from the heavenly Secrets Pavilion. He immediately changed into a clean, well-fitted set of white robes and hurried down the mountain to the main square. Disciples from all peaks arrived one after another, greeting and chatting with each other. Soon Fang Chen spotted Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling arriving side by side, talking and laughing, seemingly very confident about the disciple rating assessment. Fang Chen walked up to them, smiling and saying, "Ruxu, Xiling." The two girls turned to look at the sound of his voice. Both of them froze for a moment. Liu Ruxu raised an eyebrow, asking, "Who are you?" Chen Xiling also wore a warning expression, saying, "Don't call us so familiarly." She then froze again. She studied Fang Chen's face carefully, saying in confusion, "Sister Ruxu, why does he look so much like Fang Chen?" Liu Ruxu was also stunned. "He does look like him. They are practically identical. He's just way paler than Fang Chen." Fang Chen could not help laughing and crying at the same time. "It's me. Can't you even recognize my voice?" The two young women were greatly shocked. Liu Ruxu said in disbelief, "Fang Chen, what happened to you? You look like a completely different person all of a sudden. I barely dared to recognize you." Chen Xiling reached out to touch Fang Chen's cheek and said enviously, "It's so fair and tender, even better than my own skin. I can hardly believe this is a man's skin." Fang Chen smiled awkwardly and quietly told them about his body tempering cultivation. "What kind of body tempering technique can even make skin this good? I want to learn it too," Chen Xiling said playfully. Liu Ruxu said plaintively, "You hid such a good thing just to cultivate it alone." Fang Chen gave a bitter smile. That body tempering technique is not something you can endure. Thinking back to his previous day's cultivation, he still felt a lingering fear. At this moment, a tall, sharp-eyed disciple walked over with his hands behind his back, surrounded by the flattery of countless other disciples. Someone stepped forward to curry favor, saying, Senior Brother Tang, this is a heavenly material and earthly treasure I found during my experience travels. Please accept it. Another female disciple said coquettishly, Senior Brother Tang, you promised me last time that you would definitely let me pass. You can't go back on your word, okay? With the disciple rank assessment approaching, those disciples who had slacked off on their cultivation on ordinary days began to cram last minute, attempting to fawn over Tang Tianlong so he would go easy on them during the assessment and let them slip through. Tang Tianlong greatly enjoyed this feeling of holding the fates of others in the palm of his hand, and was secretly extremely pleased with himself. Suddenly he caught sight of two stunningly beautiful female disciples being affectionately cozy with a fair-faced young scholar. When he took a closer look, he was shocked. This person was actually Fang Chen. Fang Chen now had fair skin and a pure, untainted aura, and had grown far more handsome than before. This made Tang Tianlong furious, and he strode over rapidly. He gave a cold, fake smile and said, Junior Brother Fang, seeing how happily you are chatting and laughing with the two junior sisters, I take it you are fully confident you will pass the disciple rank assessment. Fang Chen was having a pleasant chat with the two women, and was annoyed at being abruptly interrupted. He said calmly, if you are the one administering the assessment, then there will be no problem at all. Tang Tianlong had originally intended to warn Fang Chen to behave, and make him follow the example of the other disciples to properly flatter and beg him. Of course, even if Fang Chen had genuinely begged him, he would never have gone easy on him. He only wanted to humiliate Fang Chen for fun. He never expected Fang Chen to be so stubborn and defiant, showing him open disdain in public, and even spouting such arrogant words as claiming there would be no problem if he was the assessor. He sneered and looked Fang Chen up and down. Where do you get the confidence to think you will definitely pass my assessment? You need to understand, whether I take the assessment seriously or not leads to two entirely different outcomes. If I am strict, even a cultivator at the 7th level of Foundation Establishment realm will only barely get a passing grade. If I am lenient, even someone at the 1st level of Foundation Establishment realm can pass. Do you understand? He smiled meaningfully, his words thick with unmistakable threat. The implication was clear. Expelling Fang Chen from the Qingyun Sect was as easy as turning his palm, and it depended entirely on his mood. Upon hearing these words, Fang Chen instead felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Then I am even more reassured. For he had already broken through to the 7th level of Foundation Establishment realm, so at the very least he would not fail. As for getting a good grade, that did not seem too difficult. Tang Tianlong was extremely displeased, feeling as if he had punched a pile of cotton. He simply decided to speak plainly. He said, Fang Chen, if you beg me properly now, I might be merciful and not make things hard for you. Letting you pass the assessment is as simple as a single word from me. If you continue to be so unwise, don't blame me for handling matters strictly according to the rules. That he dared to speak such a blatant threat in public showed just how unscrupulous he was. The surrounding disciples all pretended not to hear, for they still had favors to ask of Tang Tianlong. Seeing that a conflict was about to break out between the two sides, Liu Ruxu had no choice but to sensibly take out a bottle of Foundation Establishment elixirs to concede on Fang Chen's behalf. But before she could even speak, Fang Chen immediately snatched the bottle of Foundation Establishment elixirs and gave her a reproachful look. Do Foundation Establishment elixirs grow on trees? He had thought they were the top grade Foundation Establishment elixirs he had given her. He opened the bottle and saw it only contained a low-grade Foundation Establishment elixir, and a look of disgust crossed his face. Nowadays, carrying such a low-quality elixir around felt like a waste of space to him. Just then, an outer sect disciple from the sect master peak walked past, leading the peak's big yellow dog for a walk. Fang Chen immediately called out to him, Da Huang. Hearing Fang Chen's voice, the big yellow dog immediately came running over at full speed, rubbing against his leg affectionately. Come, have this. Fang Chen dropped a Foundation Establishment pill on the ground, and the crowd immediately gasped in shock. Someone shouted, what is he doing? Feeding a low-grade Foundation Establishment pill, which is only issued once a month, to a dog. What is he thinking? A low-grade Foundation Establishment pill is worth a full 100 spirit stones. Someone tried to step forward to stop him, but Da Huang was too quick. He snatched the pill in his jaws, swallowed it whole, then wagged his tail at Fang Chen with immense gratitude. Fang Chen patted its head and said, Ruxu, do you see? If you give a low-grade Foundation Establishment pill to a dog, it will wag its tail to please you. If you give it to some people, they will instead mock you for being foolish and easy to bully. Do you understand? Liu Ruxu rolled her eyes at him. Now you're playing the teacher. But she also knew Fang Chen's words made sense. If Tang Tianlong was determined to ostracize Fang Chen, any gesture of goodwill would be useless and would only invite his ridicule and humiliation. Chen Xiling had far more experience dealing with people than Liu Ruxu and had long seen that Tang Tianlong intended to humiliate Fang Chen from the start. She also bent down to Pat Dahuang and said with a bright smile, "Husband is right. We would rather give a foundation establishment pill to a dog than to certain people, for they are not even worth as much as a dog." The veiled barbs traded between her and Fang Chen made Tang Tianlong's face twist with shock and anger. He ground his teeth and snarled, "Fang Chen, are you courting death?" He could not fathom it. Did Fang Chen not realize his fate was entirely in his hands? If he wanted Fang Chen to fail the assessment, he only needed to lift a finger to make it so. "Who is making such a racket here?" A displeased voice rang out. The disciples clustered around Tang Tianlong immediately scattered like frightened birds, for they recognized the voice of Wen Hongyao, famous throughout the Azure Cloud sect for her fiery temper. No disciple dared to provoke her wrath. The crowd parted, and when Hongyao naturally spotted Fang Chen, her gloomy, weathered face instantly brightened. She walked over with a wide smile and spoke first. "Boy, are you having any issues with the disciple ranking assessment?" Fang Chen cupped his fists in salute and replied, "Thank you for your concern, Elder Wen. This disciple is fully confident." At his words, when Hongyao's face fell instead, she turned to Tang Tianlong standing beside her and asked, "You are the one in charge of this disciple assessment, are you not?" Tang Tianlong did not dare to provoke Elder Wen either. He hurriedly cupped his fists in a salute and said, replying to Elder Wen, "It is indeed this disciple." Wen Hongyao pointed at Fang Chen and said, "Go hard on this boy. It would be best if you fail him, so he is expelled from the Azure Cloud sect and loses his disciple status. That way, I can take him as a disciple on my medicine peak." With that, she left with a mischievous grin. Black lines appeared on Fang Chen's forehead when Hongyao was still dead set on taking him as her disciple. Tang Tianlong watched when Hongyao leave, then turned his gaze back to Fang Chen, finally understanding where his confidence came from. He said, "Well now, I was wondering how you dared to defy me. It turns out you have clung to Elder Wen's coattails. I underestimated you. You really are quite capable to have wrapped Elder Wen around your little finger." Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling also had looks of realization on their faces. They knew Wen Hongyao's temper well. She never even showed a kind face to her own peak's disciples, let alone disciples from other peaks. They never expected she would make an exception for Fang Chen. No wonder he was so confident he would pass the assessment. Fang Chen shrugged his shoulders. There was no way he could explain the situation. Tang Tianlong snorted coldly. "So what if you have Elder Wen backing you? Let me tell you, even if sect leader Liu supported you, it would be useless. This assessment is personally supervised by the Grand Elders. No one dares to tamper with your results." The disciple ranking assessment was a major event for the sect. It determined every disciple's future treatment and status within the Azure Cloud sect, as well as the strength of each peak and their subsequent resource allocations. Most importantly, it decided who would qualify to participate in the upcoming Beast-Tide defense. Fang Chen nodded slightly. "Then I am completely at ease. With the Grand Elders personally supervising, Tang Tianlong and Feng Guchen can only play petty tricks. They would never dare to manipulate the ranking results wantonly. As long as my performance is not too terrible, getting a good rating will not be difficult." Tang Tianlong snorted. "Keep being stubborn. We'll see who stands up for you when you are eliminated later." As soon as he finished speaking, a shocked cry rang out from the disciples. "That is the mount of the Grand Elder of Carefree Peak. It is Grand Elder Huang." Everyone looked up and saw a two-headed black hawk gliding overhead. Huang Zhenshin spotted Fang Chen by chance, so he directed the hawk to circle down and land right in front of Fang Chen. Under the stunned gazes of Tang Tianlong and all the present disciples, he walked straight up to Fang Chen. He rolled his eyes and said, "You brat, what do you need a ranking assessment for? Who even has the qualifications to judge you?" Others might not know, but Huang Zhanshin was fully aware of Fang Chen's heaven-defying talent for comprehension. The asterisk, sword heart, meteor inscription asterisk he had grasped not long ago had definitely reached the Earth-grade cultivation method level. How many disciples in the entire sect could withstand that sword art? If they were unlucky, they would be sent flying by a single strike from Fang Chen. Fang Chen laughed bitterly. "This disciple is just an ordinary disciple. How could I be exempt from the disciple ranking assessment?" If he were a disciple at the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment realm, like Liu Qingxian or Wang Chengjian, he would naturally not need to take the assessment and would be directly granted outstanding disciple status, but he was not. He was still an entire realm below that level. Huang Jianshen's lips twitched. He wanted to grant Fang Chen the privilege of skipping the assessment, but then remembered he was only a Grand Elder, and it was not appropriate for him to interfere too much in the sect's internal affairs. He then warned, "Then you'd better take it easy. Don't injure the disciples presiding over the assessment." Fang Chen smiled bitterly as he watched Huang Jianshen head towards the spectator platform with his hands behind his back. The area surrounding Fang Chen had fallen completely deathly silent. Liu Ruxu's eyes widened sharply. "Xiao Chen, you know the Supreme Elder of Carefree Peak." Fang Chen nodded slightly. "We have met once before." Chen Xiling shook her head, her eyes sparkling with delight. "I don't think it's just an acquaintance. He seemed very familiar with you." Fang Chen rubbed his nose and mumbled, "We really aren't close. It was just one meeting, a few casual words exchanged, that's all." The surrounding disciples' eyes almost blazed red with envy as they thought to themselves, "As if we believe that nonsense, just a few words, would a Supreme Elder deliberately come down to speak to someone of his own accord? What sort of status does a Supreme Elder hold? Do you get to chat with them for a few words whenever you please?" Tang Tianlong stared at Fang Chen, never having imagined that the latter would be acquainted with a Supreme Elder. He was consumed by searing jealousy. He had not even managed to curry favor with the Supreme Elder of his own reincarnation peak, yet Fang Chen knew the Supreme Elder of Carefree Peak. No wonder he dared to act so arrogantly. He actually had some capital to back it up. Unfortunately, there would not be only one Supreme Elder in attendance this time. Even if Elder Huang wanted to help you cheat, he would have to see if the other Supreme Elders agreed to it. At that moment, the disciples in the distance let out another cry of shock. Look, a ragged, unshaven old man gliding just above the ground on a rusted iron sword. If he wasn't flying so low to the ground, one would almost mistake it for the legendary sword flight. That is, Supreme Elder Shikaishan of Heavenly Sword Peak. Didn't he leave to go on a cultivation experience decades ago? When did he return? Tang Tianlong sneered coldly. See that, Fang Chen? I told you there was more than one Supreme Elder coming. This Shikaishan is a man who loathes evil as if it were his personal enemy, and he hates nothing more than disciples. Cutting corners and cheating. If Elder Huang dares to help you cheat, he'd best first consider if Elder Shi's temper has grown any milder over these years. But the very next moment, Tang Tianlong was stunned. Shikaishan rode his iron sword past the crowd of disciples with an impassive face, when suddenly his peripheral vision fell on Fang Chen. His mouth twitched. He came to an abrupt halt and said, "Brat, what are you doing here?" Fang Chen was speechless. Were all these Supreme Elders that bored? Why did they all come over to pester him for no reason? He replied respectfully, "This disciple has come to participate in the rating assessment." Shikaishan's eyes went wide. He had personally watched Fang Chen defeat the 9 siblings of Heavenly Sword Peak one after the other. One was at the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment Realm, the other at the 7th layer, both rated as outstanding disciples of the sect. Fang Chen defeated them so easily, his strength already merited the highest possible rating, so why would he even need to take the assessment? Is your master that bored to send you out for a disciple rating assessment when you already have this level of strength? How could Fang Chen respond to that? A Supreme Elder could criticize Liu Wenchen as he pleased, but how would a lowly disciple dare to do the same? Shikaishan rolled his eyes and said, "Take it easy. The disciple overseeing the assessment this time is only at the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment Realm. Don't hit too hard, or you'll cripple him." Fang Chen watched speechlessly as he too headed for the spectator seats. The surrounding disciples' gazes toward Fang Chen had changed completely. Before, everyone had thought he was just a lucky soul with no spirit root, who had somehow managed to become Liu Wenchen's disciple. But now, no one dared to think that anymore. 2 Supreme Elders were clearly very familiar with him, with such connections who would dare to look down on him. Even Tang Tianlong was stunned. He couldn't even curry favor with a single Supreme Elder, yet Fang Chen was on good terms with 2 at once. The more he thought about it, the more resentful he became. He said, "So what if it's 2 Supreme Elders? There are several coming this time. If you want to rely on their backing to muddle your way through the assessment, you'll have to see if the other Supreme Elders agree to it." Right then, amid the disciples' cries of shock, another Supreme Elder arrived, none other than Zheng Qiushuang of Flat Cloud Peak. As he passed by a group of disciples, he spotted Fang Chen from afar, a strange expression crossing his face as he mumbled, "Brat, what are you doing here for the assessment too? Got nothing better to do?" Fang Chen was left speechless yet again, and replied, reporting to Supreme Elder, "This disciple's strength is insufficient, so I must participate in the assessment." Zheng Qiushuang rolled his eyes and said irritably, "Your strength is insufficient. You're quite good at showing off in reverse, aren't you?" With that, he walked away. The crowd was left staring blankly, completely numb. Yes, they had lost all ability to be shocked. It seemed every Supreme Elder knew Fang Chen and thought very highly of his strength. How had he managed to win the favor of so many Supreme Elders? Tang Tianlong was mad with jealousy. Why, he was so talented, yet none of the Supreme Elders even spared him a second glance. But Fang Chen, a useless trash with no spirit root, had won the eager favor of so many of them. He ground his teeth and snapped. What are you so smug about? Those aren't the only Supreme Elders coming this time. One disciple hurriedly cut him off. Senior Brother Tang, please stop talking. If you keep going, another Supreme Elder will come over to greet him next. Tang Tianlong snapped his mouth shut instantly, glaring at Fang Chen bitterly. He swore fiercely in his heart. If Fang Chen thought he could pass his assessment, he was dreaming. Fang Chen sighed helplessly. I just wanted to get through the disciple assessment quietly, but every single one of them is coming out here to cause trouble for me. Liu Ruxu rolled her eyes at him, playfully. You're such a hypocrite, acting ungrateful when you've gotten such a privilege. Do you have any idea how envious everyone is that you know 3 Supreme Elders? Chen Xiling hugged his arm delightedly, her smile bright and sweet as she said, My husband is just so amazing, hee. She thought to herself secretly, it's a good thing the Supreme Elders don't know that Fang Chen is also a 3-star Soul Master. If they did, even more of them would be fawning over him. At this very moment, Liu Wenchen arrived riding a flying crane, followed by Wang Qingyun and a group of Sect Peak disciples. Spying Fang Chen from afar, Wang Qingyun frowned and said, What are you doing running around alone? Hurry over at once. We are gathered to discuss countermeasures. Chen Xiling frowned slightly and said, Husband, this man is so odious. Put on a good show later. Make sure he never dares to look down on you again. Fang Chen nodded slightly. Wang Qingyun, leveraging his status as the senior brother, had targeted him at every turn. All previous offenses were trivial squabbles, so he had let them slide. But during the last disciple assessment held by the Sect Peak's Grand Elder, Wang Qingyun had deliberately framed Fang Chen, nearly getting him expelled from the sect. This debt could not be settled so easily. Fang Chen patted the shoulders of the 2 women. Go and prepare well too. Strive to get a good rating, and qualify to participate in the Beast-Tide defense. Liu Ruxu nodded and said, Husband, don't worry about us. Xiling and I are currently cultivating under the Grand Elder now. We are considered his half-disciples. Tang Tianlong would never dare to make things difficult for us under his watch. Hearing that, Fang Chen was relieved. He took out 2 bottles of rejuvenation pills, handed one to each of the 2 women, and said, Put these away. Don't let anyone see them. Curious, Chen Xiling opened the bottle to take a look, and rows of emerald green medicinal pills entered her sight. She immediately recognized what they were, and cried out in shock, Isn't this the pill that sold for 200 spirit stones each at the auction a few days ago? MMPH. Fang Chen covered her mouth in time, and flicked her forehead hard. Do you want the whole world to know you have rejuvenation pills? Chen Xiling rubbed her aching forehead, only then realizing why Fang Chen had told them to hide the pills well. Do not let anyone see them. These are 10 rejuvenation pills, worth a total of 2 million spirit stones. If word got out, it would certainly bring a fatal disaster upon them. She stuffed the bottle into her bosom ecstatically, and said, Thank you, husband. Liu Ruxu also sent over a smile full of surprise. Husband is so good to us. The 2 breathtakingly beautiful faces, glowing like peach blossoms in spring, made Fang Chen unable to resist stealing a few more glances. Hearing Wang Qingyun's impatient urging, he said reluctantly, All right, you 2 take care of yourselves. Watching the way he left as if he had something he wanted to say, but held back, Liu Ruxu snickered triumphantly. Did you see the way he looked at us just now? Chen Xiling's cheeks flushed red, and she said grumpily, What's the use of looking? If he has the guts, he should kiss us in front of everyone. Coward. Fang Chen arrived at the gathering place of the Sect Peak disciples. Wang Qingyun immediately came up to berate him. The disciple rating is related to the honor and disgrace of the Sect Peak. Are you that confident in yourself? Instead of preparing properly, you are flirting with the female disciples of Heavenly Sword Peak. They have Grand Elder Shikaishan backing them. Who do you have backing you? Fang Chen curled his lips. You make it sound like you are the one taking the disciple rating. The emperor is not anxious, but the eunuch is rushing about in a panic. Wang Qingyun laughed in anger. Fang Chen actually dared to talk back to him. He was the senior brother of the Sect Peak, after all. Master, look at Fang Chen. What kind of behavior is this? He doesn't even listen to my words anymore. He turned around immediately to complain to Liu Wenchen. He had assumed that Liu Wenchen would harshly scold Fang Chen as he always did, but to his surprise, Liu Wenchen instead criticized him. "Qingyun, why are you so hot-tempered? Fang Chen is just catching up with his 2 wives to ease his nervous mood. It is no big deal." As he spoke, he waved at Fang Chen with a smile. "Come here." Fang Chen walked up to him, acting the same as he always had, and said, "Master, what are your orders?" Liu Wenchen reached out and slung an arm over his shoulder, saying dissatisfiedly, "You are always so formal in front of me. I don't bite, you know." Fang Chen wanted to punch him when he heard that. Did he forget how he used to treat Fang Chen? Back then, he couldn't even stand the sight of Fang Chen. How could Fang Chen not behave properly and formally in front of him? Fang Chen had rendered great merit last time when he resolved the extortion crisis caused by Tai Bubai. So Liu Wenchen's impression of him had improved drastically, which was the reason for this current change in attitude. "This is prepared for you, take it." Liu Wenchen pulled a Jade Talisman out of his bosom. It was somewhat similar to a nascent soul Jade Talisman, carved from jade with complex runes, but its power was naturally nowhere near comparable. It was estimated to only have the power of a full strike from a cultivator at the 9th level of the Foundation establishment realm. "When Tang Tianlong tries to harm you severely later, don't hold back, just crush it immediately," Liu Wenchen said in a low voice. Wang Qingyun looked on in disbelief. It was already shocking enough that Liu Wenchen did not look down on Fang Chen this time, but he had even taken out a treasured attack Jade Talisman from his own collection just to help Fang Chen get through this trouble. Even Tao Zhengjun, the disciple Liu Wenchen valued most, who cultivated both body and dharma, had never received such treatment. The rest of the disciples were filled with envy. Given the strained relations between the sect leader peak and the Samsara peak, coupled with the fact that this disciple ranking assessment determines eligibility to resist the beast tide and directly impacts the overall strength growth of all disciples, Tang Tianlong, as the examiner, will absolutely spare no effort to make things difficult for disciples from the sect leader peak. He will mark those who deserve a good rating as merely passing, and those who qualify for a passing grade as failing. Among all disciples, Fang Chen is the most widely written off. Born without a spirit root, his strength is already mediocre, and he also holds a past grudge against Tang Tianlong. It is an absolute certainty that he will fail the assessment. No one expected the sect leader to show him such special favor and grant him such a precious Jade Talisman, leaving everyone completely bewildered. This is because the incident of Tai Bubai's extortion greatly disgraced the Qingyun Sect, so it was kept strictly confidential. No one knows of this matter for the time being, let alone that Fang Chen was the hero who resolved the crisis. Fang Chen was also stunned. He was somewhat unaccustomed to Liu Wenchen suddenly treating him so kindly. He accepted it carefully and said, "Thank you, master." Liu Wenchen patted his shoulder, then gathered all the disciples in one place to explain in detail all the assessment rules and matters requiring attention. Before anyone realized it, the official start of the disciple ranking assessment had arrived. Several supreme elders who rarely showed themselves on ordinary days even appeared on the viewing platform. The disciples participating in the ranking assessment gathered in groups according to their respective sects. As the examiner, Tang Tianlong stood in the center of the square, calling forth participating disciples through random draw. Disciples would spar with him. Those who could withstand 3 of his moves would be deemed passing, 6 moves would earn a good rating, and 10 moves would earn an excellent rating. Therefore, disciples with insufficient strength who wished to pass the assessment should prioritize defense. Surviving 3 moves was enough to pass. Of course, Tang Tianlong possessed staggering strength, and the power of his 3 moves could be adjusted at will. If he was determined to make someone fail, even a cultivator at the 6th layer of the Foundation establishment realm would struggle to withstand 3 moves from him. "Let us begin," Liu Wenchen announced, then walked over to stand beside his sect's supreme elder, Zhuang Yunian. But the moment he arrived, Shi Kaishan, who was seated nearby, glowered fiercely at Liu Wenchen. "You are ruthless. Fang Chen should have belonged to Heavenly Sword Peak, but you, Liu Wenchen, snatched him away halfway." He had grown more and more furious the more he thought about it over the past few days. Liu Wenchen was completely baffled. Zhuang Yunian could not help but murmur, "Wenchen, how did you offend him? Why is he glaring at you like that?" Liu Wenchen replied blankly, "Master, how would I dare offend Supreme Elder Shi? You know full well what his temper is like. I can barely avoid him, let alone provoke his displeasure." A look of surprise crossed Zhuang Yunian's face. "Did you neglect Heavenly Sword Peak over these years? Though he has a bad temper, he is not a petty person who holds grudges. For him to bear such resentment toward you, you must have done something that left him with a bitter pill he cannot swallow." Liu Wenchen loudly protested his innocence. Master, I did no such thing. I treat all peaks equally. Not a single bit of the resources that Heavenly Sword Peak is entitled to has ever been withheld. Even Zhuang Yunian could not figure it out. Forget it, let's put this aside for now. The disciple ranking assessment is starting. Tang Tianlong walked over to a wooden box filled with small slips of paper inscribed with names. He closed his eyes, drew one slip at random, and unfolded it to read the name. He announced Sect Leader Peak Tao Zhengjun. The expressions of everyone present turned subtle. Everyone knew Tang Tianlong would not let disciples from the Sect Leader Peak pass the assessment easily, and no one expected he would draw a Sect Leader Peak disciple right at the start. Fang Chen raised his eyes to watch, curious to see how Tang Tianlong would suppress the Sect Leader Peak disciples. Called by name, Tao Zhengjun stood up immediately. His stocky build was like an iron pagoda as he strode quickly to the center of the arena. Even though he knew Tang Tianlong intended to make things difficult for him, he showed no fear. He channeled his spiritual power at the 5th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm and shouted, "Come at me." Tang Tianlong said expressionlessly, "Very well." He immediately unleashed a set of fist techniques, the force of his blows so sharp that they tore through the air with deafening whistles. Liu Wenchen slammed the table in a rage at the sight. Have they no shame? They directly unleashed the 5-phase fist, the strongest cultivation method of reincarnation peak, and attacked with full power at the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment realm. This is clearly a move to beat the opponent to death. Everyone was well aware that Tang Tianlong was deliberately making things difficult, but no one expected him to resort to such vicious means. The peak masters of the other peaks also frowned one after another. This was merely an assessment intended to evaluate the disciples' cultivation realm, cultivation methods, actual combat experience, and other qualifications. Attacking right off the bat with the overwhelming strength of 8th layer Foundation Establishment realm was not an assessment, but a deliberate attempt to eliminate the opponent. Reincarnation Peak had gone too far. Though all the elders voiced their discontent, Feng Guchen's expression remained unchanged as he spoke righteously. True gold fears no fire. If the disciples of the Sovereign Peak are truly capable, why would they fear my apprentice Tang Tianlong's full power attack? Only trash would seek to muddle through. Watching Tao Zhengjun struggle to fend off the attacks on the stage, Feng Guchen felt a surge of satisfaction. He had not intended to be so blatant at first, but he had made a huge mistake with the nascent soul Jade Talisman, making him a sinner of the sect. He had no choice but to make Sovereign Peak return empty, handed today, with not a single disciple earning a good rating, turning the entire peak into a laughingstock. That way, no one would only mock Reincarnation Peak for its incompetence. 8 moves, though Tao Zhengjun attacked furiously, unflinching in the face of Tang Tianlong's frantic suppression, the gap between their realms was far too vast. Furthermore, Tao Zhengjun was a new disciple, so his cultivation method was naturally far inferior, making it impossible for him to fight back. At the 8th move, he was finally defeated, sent flying by a single palm strike from Tang Tianlong. Tao Zhengjun's sturdy body was sent flying backwards, crashing straight towards a sharp wooden stake. Seeing this, Fang Chen rushed forward immediately and caught him easily. A pair of icy cold eyes locked onto Tang Tianlong as he spoke. Do you have to be so unscrupulous? Suppression is one thing, but to attack with such viciousness, you care nothing for the life or death of a Sovereign Peak disciple. Tang Tianlong said expressionlessly, your skills are inferior to others, yet you blame me for using my full strength. If all the disciples of Sovereign Peak are trash like this, you might as well save your effort and get back to your peak. Get out of my way, don't interrupt me from assessing the disciples. He walked to the wooden chest and drew another slip of paper, Qingyun Peak Wang Yanren. Wang Yanren was a senior disciple with cultivation at the 5th layer of Foundation Establishment realm. Fang Chen was no stranger to her. She was the female disciple who had fawned over Tang Tianlong earlier, mentioning that he had made a promise to her. What underhanded deal the two of them had struck in private was unknown. When Tang Tianlong attacked, he suppressed his spiritual power and only used an ordinary and unremarkable set of fist techniques. Wang Yanren handled him with ease, easily lasting beyond 10 moves. Tang Tianlong said with a smile, Wang Yanren, your rating is good. Wang Yanren was overjoyed and retreated cheerfully. This made the Sovereign Peak disciples furious. Unfair, Wang Yanren once fought junior brother Tao and couldn't even block 5 of his moves. It's laughable that she gets a good rating while junior brother Tao only gets a pass. With such obvious biased treatment, how can this be considered fair? Liu Wenchen was also seething with rage. He cupped his hands in salute to Zhuang Yunian and the several grand elders present to ask for their opinion.
Honored Grand Elders, you have all seen it.
Tang Tianlong is treating the disciple rating assessment as a mere joke. Those who should not pass are allowed through arbitrarily.
What is your take on this matter?
The several Grand Elders all frowned. Tang Tianlong's actions were indeed excessive, severely undermining the fairness of the disciple rating assessment.
But after exchanging glances with one another, they all chose to remain silent.
Zhuang Yuanian sighed and said, Wenchen, this is a matter for you as the sect master to handle. As per the rules, we Grand Elders cannot interfere with the internal affairs of the sect.
Otherwise, if all Grand Elders break the rules, your generation will never get the chance to take up the heavy responsibility of leading the sect. Unless it is a major event that affects the future direction of the sect, the Grand Elders will rarely intervene. Even in a situation like the one before them, where they know full well there are unfair practices, they cannot interfere arbitrarily. They can only urge Liu Wenchen, as the sect master, to resolve the matter himself.
Liu Wenchen slammed his fist on the table in fury. Damn it, if I had enough authority, the Great Elder would never dare to act so recklessly.
At this moment, the assessment on the stage proceeded in an orderly manner. For disciples from other peaks, Tang Tianlong suppressed his realm. Only when he drew a sovereign peak disciple, regardless of gender or strength, would he attack with full power.
One after another, disciples who would have otherwise earned a good rating only ended up with a barely pass rating.
If this continued, Sovereign Peak might not get a single disciple with a good rating.
As the strongest peak of the sect, this would set a record for the worst performance in history, enough to make them a laughingstock.
Sovereign Peak Fang Chen. Suddenly, Tang Tianlong drew a slip of paper, unfolded it, and a cruel grin spread across his face. Fang Chen was the one he had been waiting for. For the other Sovereign Peak disciples, he was only acting on the Great Elder's orders to deny them good ratings. Only Fang Chen was the one he personally wanted to deprive of a good rating. In his hands, Fang Chen would not even get a pass, not even in his wildest dreams. Under the watchful eyes of the entire audience, Fang Chen slowly stood up, sparking heated discussion among the disciples.
Another person who's going to get attacked with full power by Tang Tianlong. It's going to be impossible for him to get a good rating. What are you thinking? That's Fang Chen, the disciple with no spiritual roots. Hell be lucky if he can even block 3 moves.
The elders, however, had completely opposite views. When Hongyao's eyes were filled with anticipation, it's best if he fails the assessment.
Once he's expelled from Qingyun Sect, it'll snatch him back to the Medicine Peak.
Zhao Wuji rolled his eyes. You're delusional. Do you really think Fang Chen is that weak? He has such extraordinary swordsmanship talent. I don't believe his cultivation is that poor. Lai Qingfeng wiped his face and sighed. It's over. Soon the entire sect will know Fang Chen's true strength, and will be utterly humiliated. The Grand Elders, on the other hand, had yet another perspective. Wang Jianxun couldn't help but glance at Liu Wenchen, muttering, no wonder he wanted to let Fang Chen participate in the assessment.
He had long predicted that Tang Tianlong would target Sovereign Peak viciously, so he let Fang Chen take action to teach Tang Tianlong a harsh lesson.
Shi Kaishan snorted lightly. That old rascal Liu Wenchen looks like he's scatterbrained, but he's actually quite clever when handling matters. I was wondering why he would waste his time having Fang Chen join the disciple assessment for no reason. Turns out he had this planned all along. Zheng Qiushuang shrugged. This disciple called Tang Tianlong is really courting death, isn't he? Did he really think Sovereign Peak is that easy to bully? Amidst the clamor of discussions, Fang Chen stepped into the center of the plaza, gazing at Tang Tianlong before him as he spoke coolly. I originally planned to simply pass the assessment, but now I have changed my mind. Tang Tianlong reacted as if he had heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. Planned to. Changed your mind. Fang Chen, are you trying to amuse me? Do you think if you make me laugh until my sides split, you can pass the assessment? The surrounding disciples were speechless. Did he even know what he was saying?
He acted as if he could pass the assessment whenever he wished, not even sparing a glance at the miserable state of his senior brothers and sisters.
He had no sense of restraint and only spouted nonsensical words.
Among the sect leader Peak disciples, Wang Chengjian looked at Fang Chen as if he were a clown and spoke with a playful sneer. This fool is simply asking to be laughed out of the room. Aside from Tang Tianlong, he was the person who most wished for Fang Chen to fail the assessment, so he naturally took great pleasure in seeing Fang Chen make a fool of himself. A few disciples could not help but murmur among themselves, what's so funny about this? If Fang Chen loses, won't he be shaming our entire sect leader Peak? How can our eldest senior brother even laugh? Hearing this, Wang Chengjian hastily suppressed his smile and justified himself. I am merely angry that Fang Chen is not taking this assessment seriously.
This also drew conflicting opinions from the other sect leader Peak disciples.
So what if he takes it seriously? Which of the senior brothers and sisters who competed earlier did not give it their all? If I were Fang Chen, I would curse him out fiercely. Exactly. Fang Chen said this for the honor of our sect leader Peak. We should be supporting him, not mocking him. Wang Qingyun ended up pleasing neither side, and his gaze towards Fang Chen grew even more hostile. He could scarcely wait to see Fang Chen beaten to the ground within 3 moves, given a failing grade, and expelled from the sect. Liu Wenchen also let out a long sigh, barely able to bear watching the scene unfold. Several of his most prized disciples had already been defeated, so how could he possibly count on Fang Chen to uphold his pride? Fang Chen might be capable in other aspects, but this was one area where he would fall short. What good is sighing? Zhuang Yunian was also in a foul mood and looking for someone to vent his anger on. Liu Wenchen's constant sighing right beside him only irritated him further. Blame yourself for not strictly overseeing your disciples' cultivation on ordinary days, giving others an opening to take advantage of you. And when you recruited disciples, you did not enforce strict standards, letting just anyone enter the sect. Well, look at you now. We are about to have a disciple who fails the assessment. I'd like to see if you can bear the shame. He stared fixedly at Fang Chen's back from afar, a belly full of suppressed fury. If a disciple received a poor evaluation, one could still explain it away by saying the disciple was not hardworking enough, or that the master was unskilled at teaching. But a failing grade? For over a decade, no disciple had ever failed the assessment, not even from the lowest ranked peak. After all inner sect disciples taking the assessment were carefully chosen prodigies selected personally by the peak lords. But now, this record was about to be broken, and broken by the strongest sect leader peak of all. Once this unprecedented scandal spread, it would not only humiliate them within the sect, but their shame would spread across the entire 9-sect continent, becoming known to every household. The reputation of sect leader Peak would plummet irreparably. Liu Wenchen gave a sheepish smile and said in a low voice, "Rest easy, Grand Elder. I secretly gave him a Jade Talisman with the power of the 9th layer of Foundation Establishment Realm, a failing grade is absolutely out of the question." Hearing this, Zhuang Yunian glared at him and snapped in a low voice, "How could you act so recklessly? While the use of Jade Talismans is not explicitly prohibited in disciple evaluations, relying on external tools to win is naturally improper and will easily draw criticism." But then, thinking of how Tang Tianlong was maliciously targeting sect leader Peak, what harm was there in using a Jade Talisman? No one had the right to point fingers. His expression softened as he said, "I will let this slide this time. Do not do it again." Liu Wenchen breathed a sigh of relief, secretly proud of his own foresight. With this, Fang Chen would at the very least be able to pass the assessment without issue. In the center of the arena, Fang Chen looked at the howling with laughter Tang Tianlong and said coolly, "Laugh as much as you can while you still can. You will not be able to laugh very soon." Tang Tianlong found this even more hilarious. "Ha ha ha, Fang Chen, are you actually trying to laugh me to death? Do you have any idea just how vast the gap between you and me is?" Looking at Fang Chen's completely calm, unperturbed face, Tang Tianlong could not stop laughing. "Fine, then I will let you experience first, and just how pathetic and insignificant you are before me." He only used half of his spiritual power, throwing a casual punch towards Fang Chen. He had no intention of eliminating Fang Chen with a single strike. Instead, he wanted to brutally torture Fang Chen, both physically and in terms of his pride, making him regret every word he had spoken. But to Tang Tianlong's shock, Fang Chen showed no intention of mobilizing his spiritual power at all, keeping his hands clasped behind his back. Only when the whistling fist, brimming with sharp force, arrived right in front of him did he unhurriedly extend a palm, catching Tang Tianlong's fist as casually as if he were plucking a leaf from a branch. No matter how fiercely the spiritual power in Tang Tianlong's fist surged, it could not shake Fang Chen's palm in the slightest. Fang Chen said coolly, "Bring out your full strength. I will make you admit defeat wholeheartedly." As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his palm lightly. Tang Tianlong immediately felt as if he had been kicked by a colossal elephant, his entire body staggering back repeatedly, nearly collapsing onto the ground on his rear end. This caused an uproar across the entire arena. "Am I seeing things?" Fang Chen pushed Tang Tianlong back. The power of that punch was no joke. Many veteran disciples could not even block it. A heated discussion also broke out among the elders. Wen Hongyao wore a face full of disappointment, speaking discontentedly. Why does this brat never follow the script? He should have been knocked to the ground with that single punch. Zhao Wuji crossed his arms over his chest and said smugly, "Did I not tell you? This kid's martial prowess is absolutely nothing to scoff at." Lai Qingfeng wore a face full of astonishment. "That can't be right. Why do I get the feeling that he has grown even stronger?" Even among the grand elders, there were ripples of surprise. Huang Jianchen froze for a moment, speaking in confusion. How strange. This boy not only has exceptional comprehension, but he is also a top-tier body refinement prodigy. He can even withstand attack from someone at the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment Realm. Qingyun drew in a sharp breath. Hiss. This little rascal's physical strength has indeed increased. It has barely been any time, yet his body refinement technique has improved by leaps and bounds. He then turned to glare viciously at Liu Wenchen. Their grudge over him poaching this disciple was now completely set in stone. Liu Wenchen was so unnerved by the glare that his heart raced, thoroughly confused. When had he ever offended Grand Elder Qingyun? That look made it seem as if the man wanted to beat him to a pulp. Zhuang Yunian's face was filled with shock. Well, I'll be. This boy's physique is this powerful. That punch Tang Tianlong threw just now was not something ordinary disciples could block, and not only did he block it, he sent Tang Tianlong flying back. Only then did Liu Wenchen remember that he had not properly introduced Fang Chen yet, and spoke immediately. I forgot to tell you, Fang Chen has exceptional body refinement aptitude. During the ancestor worship ceremony, he even defeated Kong Wushwang, the body refinement prodigy from the Giant Sect, earning great glory for our sect leader Peak. Zhuang Yunian was stunned. Is that true? I have heard of that Kong Wushwang. He is the son of Ru Yuanba, and showed extraordinary physical prowess from a very young age. Fang Chen could actually defeat him in body refinement combat. Liu Wenchen spoke. The entire sect bears witness. This cannot be falsified. Zhuang Yunian's face was filled with astonishment. He could not help clicking his tongue in wonder. This fellow has no spiritual root, yet he is unexpectedly a top-tier prodigy for body refinement. He quickly snapped back to his senses, sized up Liu Wenchen, and asked, Wenchen, tell me honestly, did you take him as your disciple because you saw his body refinement talent? That was naturally not the case, but since the Grand Elder had already praised him for his sharp discernment, how could he deny it? Thus he put on a stern old face, his heart guilty as he answered, precisely. Hearing that, Zhuang Yunian gave him an annoyed thump on the chest. I was wondering why you went out of your way to pull strings for someone. Turns out you wanted to give me a surprise, you rascal. When did you become such a smooth operator? Though his words sounded like a reproach, the smile on his face could not hide the joy in his heart in the slightest. He let out a long sigh of relief, his body and mind filled with delight. Ah, there are truly no weaklings on my sect master Peak. Even someone without a spiritual root is a top-tier body refinement prodigy. Heh. Liu Wenchen stood aside, listening with immense guilt gnawing at his heart.
Meanwhile, the situation on the battle arena shifted once more.
Tang Tianlong barely managed to stabilize his figure, his face etched with stunned shock. His full punch had actually been caught by Fang Chen, and he had nearly been left utterly humiliated. What did you just do? He refused to believe that was Fang Chen's true strength. He must have used some kind of magical artifact or Jade Talisman to unleash such power. Fang Chen looked at him calmly. Why aren't you laughing anymore? Did you suddenly stop liking to laugh? Those mocking words made Tang Tianlong burn with shame and rage. Look how cocky you are. I used less than half my strength just now, and you only won by cheating through sheer luck. Do you truly think you are that formidable? His body trembled, and the spiritual power in his spirit pool surged out, coursing through his entire frame, unleashing the full might of the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment Realm. Since you are so fond of showing off, I shall attack with full force. I hope you can still keep up that arrogant front then. He let out a cold snort, pushed off with both legs, and leaped forward like a great rock spreading its wings, throwing a brutal punch at Fang Chen mid-air. The surrounding onlooking disciples held their breaths, especially the disciples from Sect Master Peak, who even turned their heads away, unable to bear watching the coming scene. All previous disciples from Sect Master Peak had lost to Tang Tianlong in exactly this manner when he attacked with his full strength.